Hey guys, Clayton here at eTrailer.com. Today we'll be taking a look at, and I'll show you how to install, our Blue Ox diode wiring on our 2009 Infiniti G37. Keep in mind this is one of the main 6 components that we need to flat tow our vehicle. We need our base plate, our tow bar, our safety chains, our braking system, our wiring, and our brake light relay. So as you can see, our right blinker's going on our vehicle and an RV. This is going to keep everybody safe behind us, whether it's daytime or nighttime. They're going to know what we're doing, and that's why wiring is essential to our vehicle when we're flat towing. So our diodes are important because they're going to protect our factory wiring while allowing us to use our factory turn signals when we're flat towing our vehicle. So our diodes are going to mount right behind our taillights using factory wiring. These diodes are going to prevent backfeed to our vehicle or to our RV. And the great thing about these diodes is we can still use our factory lights whenever we're not flat towing our vehicle. Speaking of installation, I'll walk you guys through how to install this on your vehicle now. To start our installation, we need to run our wiring. I prefer to run front to back. That'll just give us a little bit more room in the back when we have to make our connections. So first I like to tie off to our base plate here. I like to leave a lot of extra just in case. And then I took my wiring up through this little hole here. Then up into our wheel well along our firewall. And it's very important to make sure you're staying away from anything hot or moving. So then I ran it up this way, down through this panel, and out right here. And then I tucked it up under this underbody panel because it'll protect our wiring. You don't have to worry about it moving. So I ran it back this way, out of our panel here, came underneath, back through this way. Then I went straight up over our suspension. So it's kind of hard to see, but it runs up through this way, kind of following that factory frame. Then I zip tied it up here on the collar. Back through the back here, through our fender liner, and then I'll lower the car down and run our wiring up to our trunk. So our trunk looks a little different just because it's a convertible, but it should be very similar steps on a coupe. So we're going to start with taking off this cover here. Uses a Phillips head screwdriver. And take our screw out. And grab a flathead screwdriver and pry up on that little cut there to pull off our box, or our cover I should say. You want to be careful because there is wiring. So we will want to push our tab here, then pull up. We can set this off to the side. So next we'll want to take off this panel. It simply pulls up, but you do want to be careful because there's factory wiring for our trunk light and some wiring on our other side. All you have to do is pull up. And you might have to lift this door here. And you will want to be patient with this wiring because it is kind of tricky. So with our panel loose, we can pull it forward. As you can see, here's our wiring. Push down on this tab and disconnect our wiring. Then we can set our trunk piece off to the side for reinstallation later. So next we'll take out 3 bolts to secure our taillight. One is located here, and there is 2 on our other side over here. These will be a 5/16 socket. You do want to be careful that you don't drop your bolt into the rear of our vehicle. And our other bolts are located right here and right down there. And this will be the same 5/16 socket. So it's kind of hard to get to our 3rd bolt. We're going to go ahead and remove these 2 push pins. That'll just give us a little bit more access to our hardware. To get to our 3rd bolt, we need to remove these 2 push pins here and here. That'll just give us a little bit more flexibility in our trunk liner to where we can bend it out of the way to access our bolt. I'm just going to use a little flathead screwdriver, pop that push pin out, repeat that process on this one as well. And as I remove our 3rd bolt, we will want to do the same process on our other side. So we're going to take a nylon pry tool, just kind of loosen up all of our sides here. We'll take the same tool, come in on the side of our taillight here. You'll have to wiggle it and kind of pull. You want to be careful just to not crack your taillight housing. You want to stay away from this corner. This can be kind of tricky, so you do want to make sure to take your time. So there we go, we've pried our taillight out. This side does have our trunk release, so we do want to be careful with our wiring. We can take it out of this clip here. There's another clip right here. Then we'll want to disconnect any of our wiring or anything like that, just so that we can take our taillight housing off. We'll twist that out. To undo this plug, you might need to grab a flathead screwdriver and push down on this little tab. You'll probably have to wiggle it around just to get that plug out. Sometimes I do like to run the flathead screwdriver on these sides just to loosen up any dirt or debris that might be in there. So we'll push down on that tab, kind of pull it out to the side. Then we'll want to twist our other lights out. Then we can set our taillight housing off to the side. There's one plug on the other side of our big taillight, so you'll want to unplug that and repeat the same process on the other side. And now we need to get our wiring up through our rear fascia. You can use a airline tube or a rope with a string. Honestly, there's enough room where you could almost reach down and grab your wire, but we'll go ahead and feed this through. Then when you see it come out the bottom, we can attach our wiring to that and pull it up through our fascia. Now we're ready to test our wires and make our connections. And now we will want to remove our tape on our factory wiring. Just make sure you're careful not to cut any wires. And removing all of this tape will help us make our connections and give us a little more room to test our wiring. So now we're going to test for our brake light signal. We are going to use a wiring tester. If you need one, you can find those here at trailer.com. We'll take our ground it onto our muffler, take our tester, push it into our wire, and that is our brake light signal. So our green and yellow wire will be brake light. And then we will test for our taillight signal. So our green and red will be our taillight signal. So now we're ready to separate our wires. We're going to take our green wire, pull that off. I'm going to pull it back to where it just goes into the back of our taillight housing. And then we will drop this down, and this will run over to our passenger side. So we'll drop this down. And then we can strip back our other wires. Our yellow wire will be our left brake and turn, and our brown wire will be our taillight signal. Our white wire will be our ground. And I'm going to ground that right here. So we'll go ahead and strip it back where we did the green wire. And then we will not be dropping this one through. So now we're ready to run our ground. I'm going to strip it back to right about here. That'll give us just enough room to make our connection. So we will cut our wire, strip it back. We can add our ring terminal. We will crimp that down, add some electrical tape, and run our ground. I'm just going to wipe it down with some rubbing alcohol, so make sure a clean connection. That wiped down, go ahead and use our self-tapper and mount our ground. So we tried to mount our ground wire here. It wasn't secure enough, so we're going to move our ground over here where there's a little bit more material. And then we're going to come back and fill that hole with silicone. So again, we're going to take our rubbing alcohol, wipe down our panel, dry it off a little bit, and mount our ground over here. And that's much more secure. So now we're ready to trim back our wiring. So we can go ahead and cut our brake and turn. We'll trim back both ends of this and add female spade connectors. This wire will be our out signal on our diode, and this wire will be our in signal on our diode. You do just want to twist these, make sure it's all one wire. Put that in there. Grab our crimpers. Crimp that down. Add our connector on this one. Crimp it down. So now we're ready to add our diode. This side has two plugs and this side has one. This will be our in signal and this will be our out. So we can go ahead, take our connector, add it here, take this connector, add it here, and this will complete our circuit that we had just cut. So I do like to take the yellow wire and see where it's going to connect. Our diode's going to sit right about here, so I'll take our wire and cut it back here just so we have a little extra. Now we're ready to crimp down our yellow wire. With our connector added to our yellow wire, we're ready to put it on our diode, and now we can do our running light signal. Now ready to cut and trim back our taillight wire. I'm going to go ahead and do it right about there. I always like to leave just a little bit extra. What we're going to do is let's fold it over. We're going to strip back both ends. And what we're going to do is use the other part of our brown wire as a jumper wire to run to our taillight signal on our passenger side. So we'll grab our wiring, twist it together, add our spade connector, crimp it down, add it to our diode. Now we can reinstall our taillight. Now we can take our brown wire, drop it back down with our green wire. So now we're going to go ahead and run our wiring to our passenger side. I'm going to try to get it as far up as possible. There's a gap in our rear bumper beam, and we can run our wiring up and over that. Make our other side come up over that bumper beam. And then we'll see if we need to add an extra wire. So we went ahead and tested our wiring on our passenger side. Turns out it's the exact same. So our green and yellow will be our brake and turn, and our red and green will be our taillight signal. So I went ahead and ran our wires up through our rear fascia. We have plenty of room, so we can go ahead, trim everything back, and make our connections just like we did on the driver's side. Now we're ready to put on our last wire, and in this case the brown wire is only going to have one, so I'll go ahead and plug that in. Now we're ready to reinstall our taillights and test everything out. And now we're ready to hook up to our alternate power source and test out our wiring. So now we have our taillights. Here's our left turn, our brake lights, and our right turn. Once we've tested everything out and we know we're good to go, we can reinstall all of our trunk components in the reverse order that we took them out. That's going to do it for a look at and installation of a BlueOx diode kit on our 2009 Infiniti G37.